So along with those of you that are here today in person, we do have some viewers that were not able to get here, but are going to be tuning in. We do have a hard stop at 2:30 today, after which there's outdoor space, really beautiful outdoor space if anybody wants to continue conversations. The format for today is pretty simple. We will begin in a short while with introductions by the candidates. There will be prepared questions with 2-minute response periods per candidate, followed by a Q&A from the audience, and that's as time allows, and then closing statements from the candidates. We're unable to accept questions through the live stream, but we will allow time, as I said, from the participants. And there are index cards over there in the table, and also the table in the back where we've got our wonderful 2 of our volunteers. You can turn in your questions to them, and then Christine will be organizing those as we proceed to that part of the program. We have 2 parent volunteers actually helping. Susan is right here. She's our timekeeper, and she's going to signal the candidates at 30 seconds out, 10 seconds out, and then when your time has ended. And as I said, Christine's going to collect the index cards for those for questions for those that are present. So final housekeeping announcement: silence your phone, please, and hold your applause until the end so that we minimize disruptions. Now, there are some people in the audience I can just tell that will be disruptive no matter what. Looking at my good friend right over there, but that's okay. We'll just point to him and she'll. No, I'm joking. I'm just trying to ease everybody a little bit right here. So we will begin. We're going to, as I said, welcome our wonderful candidates. Really appreciate individuals that are willing to kind of step up and look at public service. It's needed in our community, it's needed in our state, it's needed across the whole country. So those of you who are seeking election to the Eanes ISD Board of Trustees, thank you for being here this afternoon and for sharing your vision for the future of our school district, and as well as for your commitment to the students and to the community. So our candidates are Kelly Marwell, wait, Aaron Silva, and Catherine Walker. So each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes to introduce themselves, and we're going to start with introductions, and we're doing that in alphabetical order by last name. And then we're going to, then we're going to just move to the next person out order. Y'all are kind of seated differently than I expected, but that's okay. I do want to just use my props here because I was like really careful to save my props. So you guys probably have seen some of this wonderful literature that's been going out. This type of setting, a forum like this, just adds to the messaging that you guys have been doing. So again, I really want to thank you for taking the time to do this. So we are going to start with Kelly Marwell for introduction, and our time is going to start the time.
Hi, I'm Kelly Marwell. Thank you so much for coming today. It's great to see everybody. I am a Eanes parent. I have 2 kiddos in middle school right now, and then 1 in high school. I started my journey here 15 years ago when Tim and I moved to the area, and I've been very invested ever since. We bought a house over by Cedar Creek Elementary, and I was immediately introduced to the Eanes Education Foundation, where I began to fundraise for our schools to fund the gap in our educational experience for the kids, and then moved forward to also doing a Booster Club. With the Booster Club, we had many capital projects we did at our campus, and I very much enjoyed serving at the school. And then as my kids moved to middle school, I've also been a band parent. I've served on our district leadership teams and our campus leadership teams. So I'm familiar with strategic planning for our schools and the goals and how we set them and how we prioritize them, how we evaluate our programming. I am very excited to be here today and look forward to talking more. Thank you.
So next will be Aaron Silva.
Hi. Thank you all for joining. So I'd like to start with a little bit of a story, which has to do with my experience and my wife's experience with special education. And it has to do with my daughter. When she was 2.5 years old, we met some friends that had a little girl named Tia, who was 4. And she was in preschool for autistic children. And they told her at the time that she'd never be able to tie her shoes as an adult. And Lydia and Tia, you remember Tia, became great friends over the years. And many, many times I remember her behavioral therapist coming over, Joel, and play dates at the house, at the playground, at Target, at restaurants, at malls. It was really an absolutely fascinating experience to be with her and her parents through all that. And I remember her mom and dad telling us before we left for Texas that we were the only family with neurotypical children that wanted to be around Tia. Today, she got a scholarship to De La Salle High School. She'll graduate with honors. She'll go on to college and she'll be just like any typical child we would ever want. And that was a very, very touching experience. And so as I approach the opportunity to be a trustee for the school, I have that with me in my heart as I think hard about what the possibilities are to really help these amazing students. And not only approaching it with your heart, but being able to approach it with your head is something I think I'll be able to bring, a perspective I'll be able to bring with that experience going forward. And I hope that's an opportunity you'll allow me to have.
Okay, so now, Catherine, please.
My name is Catherine Walker. I'm a trustee place 5, and I want to thank everyone for coming because it's a Saturday afternoon and it's prime season for everyone with their activities. So I know it was probably a bit of a challenge to figure that out. I am a parent of 3 children in our district, and all 3 of my children do receive some level of special education support. I've been in many ARD committee meetings and pre-ARD committee meetings and signed my name off to many IEPs. And I can tell you that sometimes it's been pretty easy breezy and sometimes it's been more challenging. And that was a wake-up call for me that I need to get more back involved with our district. I was a member of the Parent Special Education Working Group, and if there's one thing I learned, that my experiences of parent were very different from other children, parents of other children. All 3 of my children received support for dyslexia. 2 of them received support for dysgraphia, and 2 of my children wear hearing aids, so they received deaf and hard of hearing support. So we have a bit of a different spectrum there, maybe from other parents. But I just know that what I experienced might be different from others, and that was a real learning for me. So I am a CFO professionally, and I know that we have challenges with balancing the needs of the special education department. We have needs balancing our budget at the highest level. Also with the balance and the intricate balance with our funding from the state, and we want to maintain needs at the highest level that it can possibly be. So I'm keeping all of these in mind as I talk to parents and we come to these forums, because what is going to require some really serious conversations down the road. And just lastly, we have been in the Spanish immersion program, all 3 of my children, and there have been some beautiful things that have happened with the language acquisition and maybe some things that I wanted that we didn't achieve. But all in, I just want to make sure that Spanish immersion is at the same quality as our other educational opportunities.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing with us in your introduction. So before we began this afternoon, we drew names to determine which candidate would answer the prepared questions first. And so the order that was drawn was Kelly Marwell first, Catherine Walker second, and Aaron Silva third. So we're going to use that kind of lineup as we go through all the prepared questions. And each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. So the first question will go to Kelly first. What are your insights on the current Eanes special education program, particularly focusing on the principle of educating each student in their least restrictive environment? Additionally, what would be your plans for the future of special education at Eanes to foster inclusion?
So for the inclusion of students in the classroom, we have the supports put in place so that we can have multiple differentiated learning in our classrooms. We also have supports outside the classroom for the students as well, so they can receive additional reading support or physical therapy or various other services. I see a huge benefit as when I worked in the schools as a nurse with having the inclusive program and seeing the students support each other, be together. I see it amongst the gen ed and sped ed students, as well as even the entire population, seeming to take care of each other better and support each other more. I have also can see the future of the program going very well. We now have the EEF endowment that was established so that we can further support and educate our teachers so that they can continue to use the differentiated learning of classrooms. We have the technology support in our classrooms at Eanes so that the students can also utilize that. We have different spaces for the students to go to and utilize. And then we have the partnership with the booster clubs as well, where we can continue to provide the supplies and different, also the different trainings and learnings that the teachers would like to use as well.
Thank you. Okay, next, Catherine.
Thank you. So the first part of the question was about this restrictive environment, which of course is a mandate. We don't really have a choice about that. But it was my own experience when the district came to me and told me my first grader was below her grade level in reading and had made a recommendation to us to go to the Round Rock ISD for support because she wears hearing aids. And they said it was due to her phonological awareness. And, you know, that was my wake-up call. I had to hire an educational consultant to help me work through these processes because it was far above anything I had experienced before as a parent. And I just want to say that when we talk about inclusion, this is about leveling the playing field for our students so that they don't feel singled out, that they have a comfort knowing that their classmates who become their friends, that their teachers are all there to support them, and that we provided the proper level of scaffolding underneath them so all children have the same opportunities. When that issue came up with Round Rock, one of my initial concerns was it was a recommendation to go to their day school, that my daughter didn't know sign language, and I was very concerned that she would feel very singled out because she doesn't sign, she doesn't know ASL. So I also want to just say that our teachers come from a place of advocacy. They're not recommending things to us that they're trying to do that are harmful. They're really caring. And I think about our deaf and hard of hearing teacher. She was really being an advocate for my daughter. So I also wanted to make sure that I, as a parent, retain those same relationships with the teachers because that's really important. That I don't want to say that there's always harmony, but that we are all working towards the same goals and we can have open and honest conversations. And that's really what inclusion is about.
Thank you. Comes to mind are kind of 5 points I see where the opportunities are. First, I'd love for this Stetson report to be updated. It was last done in 2019. And I think in a post-COVID world, a third-party outside review would be very, very helpful because education has changed for everybody in a post-COVID world. And I think starting there, the second thing I would focus on is really about the attrition. But 54% or so of our staff in special education is between 1 and 5 years experience. I think we have to find ways to keep those people there so we can have more wisdom and mentoring going on as we bring more and more folks on. I think the third thing we have to really look at hard is funding opportunities. You know, we need to spend more money and do more great things for our students and supporting of our parents to raise those students better. And I also am interested in the situation with attendance. I asked Dr. Arnett why the absenteeism in special education is around 23-24%. And the administration really didn't have any answers yet, although I know they're looking into it. I think understanding what drives some of that behavior is going to give us information about what we can do about the program so that the students are coming to the school on a more regular basis. And I think the last thing I've heard from a good number of parents as I've talked to them is about making sure we're detecting opportunities to help children much earlier as they're younger. So that way when they come into the program, we can design programs and be more intentional about that. So those are 5 things I think we would do, and doing all those things would greatly improve inclusion and overall success of the program.
Very good. Thank you all very much for your responses. The second question is, and this time we'll start with Catherine, and then Aaron, and then Kelly. The Eanes Special Education Program has grown by 22% over the past 5 years and is expected to continue to grow in the future. How do you propose to ensure that special education students are not disproportionately impacted by budget constraints?
Thank you. Oh, it's already 30
Good job.
seconds.
Sorry.
Woo.
She's starting the time.
So I understand that special education as a percent of our population is growing, and I actually think that's a mark that we're doing better with the identification of students who need extra support. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. That could be a good thing. We also received a little bit more money from the state, or with the recapture, the calculation, they're weighted differently. So special education students get a bit more money than your average student. Unfortunately, it costs about 50% more to teach a child under the special education umbrella. And again, it's a wide umbrella. My children have dyslexia and hearing disabilities. Other children, we educate children with cerebral palsy and Down syndrome. And so we have amazing support for these students. We have the adult transition services, but it does cost more than the general education. So there are budget constraints. I think this is a need where we as a district will have to go back to the state and start lobbying for proper support for our children. Because we are at we have some budget constraints just generally. Erin mentioned that some of our students are not attending school as well as they should because they have a higher weighting on funding that impacts our overall weighted average daily attendance, which is what drives some of the funding. So the better that those students are attending, the more engaged, the more included they feel, that will also help cover some of the gap.
Thank you. Yeah, looking back at some of the trend data, when this study was done in 2019, in the previous 5 years, our expenditures had increased about 6%. And in the subsequent 5 years since 2019, our expenditures have increased about 17%. But to your point, the population has grown by 23%. So there is definitely a mismatch. There's more demand than there is dollars coming into the system. When I sat with the administration, Mr. Scott and Trimble and Dr. Arnett, and they told me that the funding formulas at the federal level are really, really difficult and very constraining, such that if once you get a certain amount of money from the federal government, you get matching funds, you really don't have an option. I call it a ratchet. Once the dollars ratchet up to a certain level, you really don't have a lot of options to change that funding formula. Otherwise, the federal government will penalize you. So I think those things need to be looked at a little more closely. Obviously, there may be remedies at the state level. It's hard to say. But I think, like so many other things that affects the school district, we are a private, or we are a public institution, we are a public institution, really a private institution in a public finance system. And we have to look for some opportunities to self-fund all the way across. And I think that would include special education. The last thing we need to do is change the way it's funded. We have to improve the funding and really lean in to make the program world-class. And that's really what I'd like to do, is see a way to take it to another level of excellence. And to do that, it's going to take more resources. I agree.
Kelly, please respond.
Yes, thank you. So I would like to see us continue to partner with EEF in their efforts to have a more sustainable programming with the endowment. While we're waiting and while we're advocating for the state to fund us, we can educate our families and our parents to join us in the mission in supporting EEF and having the funds in place that can bridge that gap while we're waiting. I also would like to see us work with having our campuses support our students with their attendance. I think it's important that we have the counselors and the parents and the students all work together to collaborate so we can get those students at school, find out what we need to do, what supports we need to have in place, because that will also help us out in the meantime while we're waiting for our funding.
Thank you. All right, so we'll move on to our next question, and this one, the order will be Erin, and then Kelly, and then Catherine. And to kind of start this off, we've heard and we all think everybody in this room is pretty well informed. So we always know that there's great uncertainty around what legislative action will be taken or may not be taken or when it will be taken and so on and so on and so on. So given the challenges of below market salaries and high turnover rates among staff, particularly considering the specialized expertise and experience that really enhances the effectiveness of special education teaching, how do you plan to alleviate the strain on teachers and assistants to prevent students in special education from being negatively impacted?
That's another tough one. And when you try to understand what might be driving some of the attrition rate, the higher attrition rates in the teaching population of special education, I think the feedback that I've been getting from parents is there's an opportunity to train the staff more, to support them so they understand how to deal with a lot of the adverse situations that come along with special education. Certainly, there's a level of underpay. I brought up the other day that we spend, I believe it is about almost $1 million on the 12 psychologists that we have specifically in special education. That's a lot of money. We need to find opportunities to do more there. I think a way to fund is what Christine's family has done. I love the idea of empowering Eanes Education Foundation to diversify their funds so that parents and organizations have a channel to drive dollars into that will be specifically purposed for special education or other things that we need desperately in the school district. And, you just look at the wonderful work that you did at the Aggie Achieve and what that meant to Texas A&M and all the wonderful students that have come through there. I mean, that's an example of if you set your mind to doing something different and you're purposeful, the dollars and the money will follow those great ideas. And I think that's really what we have to think about here at Eanes and special education program is looking at it as an opportunity to build a world-class organization, really take it to another level of excellence. And if you're able to do that, I believe you will be able to attract the dollars to help make up some of those gaps and help our teachers really do a very, very good job.
At the last board meeting, Matt Zemo spoke and he talked about having Nikki Smith moved to be an instructional partner. And now that the teachers have this instructional partner in place for the SPED teachers, they have the opportunity to have the support person for their training, their questions, their just all that extra support. And it also gives us this new continuity throughout all of our campuses. So if we have one instructional partner that's assisting our teachers on each of our campuses, that will give us more more continuity throughout all the other campuses. But the other part was that he reported that since he's seen that position, he can report a 90% retention rate for his teachers. So I do believe that it is very important to have that support there for the teachers, a main support person that will connect them all together. And then also add in, I would also like to add in doing professional development for our teachers as well.
Thank you. I think teacher attrition is a global issue that we need to look at, not just for teachers, but also the support staff and all the other people who help support teachers. But I think for special education, it just requires a different level of engagement, and maybe there's a different level of stress for special education teachers. And I wonder if there's just a level of burnout. If you think about how complex we set up the individualized education plan, teacher, the IEPs, where it says maybe 3 times a week, your special education teacher is going to check on you for 20 minutes a day. And then 1 time a week, we're going to sit with you in this class. And then maybe you've got wind time over here, and it's truly like a jigsaw. And there's 600 children in the school, and the teachers, our special ed teachers are running from here, and they're running from there, and they're having to then go back and document all the things and have quarterly reports to parents. And that's a lot of work for these teachers. And so I just wonder if we see a higher rate of dropout because we've asked them for a lot. And so maybe we haven't given them the proper tools. And I also think about this other amazing resource we have, the Parent Special Education Working Group, which is, it's called something else now. And even at a parent level, it used to be one parent per campus, and now it's maybe 5 or 6 parents who are still actively engaged in that. So maybe it's an opportunity to bring our educators into the fold more than they have been in the past. So it's not just parents, but it's more collaboration with the individuals who are working with our children day in and day out. I think that it's going to be things like that, more communication, better tools, just opportunities for them to know that parents appreciate them, especially. I think just in closing, when we have gifts to the parents for the Booster Club, say at the end of the year, I want to make sure, you know, our special education teachers getting those same nice gifts from Booster Clubs. They might be overlooked.
Thank you very much. Okay. Our next question, I'll preface personally by saying that nationally and in Texas, experts in education, especially in special education, know that meaningful progress for students in education is essential. And indeed, there's case law that also directs that. Some parents in our district express concerns that their children are not making meaningful progress at school. Ensuring the fidelity of implementing individualized education programs, IEPs, is crucial for the academic success of students receiving special education services. How do you plan to address these concerns and ensure that students make progress on their IEP goals, accurately track their performance, and receive appropriate services to support their progress? And we're going to start with Kelly.
So I definitely have spoken to parents about the same thing, the meaningful progress and the IEP evaluations. The one thing that parents had talked to me about is they were looking for a more frequent evaluation maybe, or when their student had been identified, especially in the later grades, as having some failing grades or failing a class, that the immediate response would be to go ahead and get an evaluation started again. There's also different ways to track performance. There's different, you can evaluate with different tools. We want to make sure that we're utilizing all of those so that we can appropriately serve all of the students and meet them where they're at. Thank you.
Catherine.
Well, I've thought about this on my own, about how we can monitor and measure all of those goals that are on the IEPs. Is it as simple as putting a radial button on the form where the teachers say, yes, we're progressing towards the goals, and then it's more automated and we can pull reporting out of that? I think the problem is that, excuse me, allergies. I think the problem is that, you know, our children, there's so many different types of concerns that our special education team are trying to support that it gets really onerous to try and do those types of things, right? Almost like, do you want me to be with your children or do you want me to do the things? And I can put myself in our special education teacher's shoes. So I think it's really important for those quarterly, I call them quarterly, but it's, you know, every 10 weeks, the report outs on how our students are doing. And also just about making sure that parents are engaged in this process, that they understand, and when they sign up on the IEPs, that they truly understand what they're signing off on, so their expectations match what our team is recommending. That's going to be really important for us going forward. Perhaps it's a bit more parent education as well.
Thank you, Aaron.
Reflecting back on the story I opened up with my wife and I, and us having an experience with Tia, as I was sharing that, really, I saw that experience of this child really just open up as a flower and go on to do amazing things. And I contrast that with my studies while I've been a candidate for a trustee, and you know, the Stetson report, for example, pointed out some deficiencies in the way bookkeeping was made and things of this nature. But then, you know, I remind myself, as a trustee, I'm supposed to be a leader. And a leader doesn't get into those level of details. A leader puts the right people in place that have far more expertise and competence than I'll ever have, especially in this area. And they give them the advocacy and the support to go do great things on behalf of the organization. And that's really what I want to be as a trustee. If I find myself in the details, even in my own enterprises, when I find myself in the details doing things that my people are compensated to do very well, I know there's something else going on. And so as a trustee, I want to help support the parents. I want to be in the corner of the parents and all the children, available and accessible as a trustee to make sure that the right people, the right processes, and the right service is being provided, because at the end of the day, this is a service. This is something that every single special needs student needs to get. And I think if I can do those things, just like I've done in my career running organizations, that's really what a trustee should be doing. And that's what you could expect from me if I'm fortunate enough to be elected.
Thank you. Our next question, the order will be Catherine, and then Aaron, and then Kelly. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act requires all districts to provide students with disabilities a public education designed to meet their unique needs and prepare them for future education, employment, and independent living. How would you ensure that our students are prepared for a meaningful life after high school? And we're going to start with Kat.
How would I ensure that our children are?
How would you ensure that our students are prepared for a meaningful life after high school?
Yes, well, I think that goes back to the concept of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that for every student that we're providing the proper level of scaffolding underneath them so that they can achieve the level of education that they're able to, and that no child is left behind. And by that, I mean, back to the IEPs, right? That's the starting place when your principals and your special ed teachers, general ed teachers, and parents sit down in a meaningful way. And then it's not just this administrative paper pushing process, but we really set goals that help our children advance through their time in school. And that's really where it starts. And then hopefully you do see progress. And hopefully when you're not getting progress, that you're getting reports back from the teachers that your son or daughter is falling behind. I think there is a notion that back to diversity, equity, and inclusion, that when our students feel engaged in the process, that's how they're going to do better at their goals. There's also a notion to me that the students have to understand or have the ability themselves to have communication in this process, and we do that a little bit. It's the plan where they get to talk about what their strengths are and what their preferences are, is the spin document. And in this process, I think that we need to do that as well to get our students' inputs on what their goals are. So it's a collaborative approach, but I just think we're doing well, but there's more.
Aaron?
I think some of this answer is runs parallel with my previous answer, which is as a leader, especially over an amazing organization as we have at Eanes and this incredible legacy, and something so unique and touching as the special education program and the incredible results that are possible. I try to put my shoes on all the parents, and I'm sure many parents wonder when their child is young, what they'll grow up to be. What is the road for them as they move through our education system? And then obviously, how are they going to move beyond that? We have friends who they know that their child may have limits after high school. But I think we always have to be focusing as a trustee on what the possibilities are. We already have the adult transition services, which are quite successful. And then there's other programs. Again, I refer back to Ms. Luna, what you've done with the Aggie Achieve, and those types of grassroots ideas and pathways now that we have for special education students that never existed when I was a child. I can assure you that. I don't ever think I knew of what special education was till long after I was an adult. But as a trustee, really, it's about making sure you have the right people, the right processes, and that you're providing the right service. Texas gives us a lot of guidance on what the service should look like, and we can have third parties come in and audit what we're doing to make sure we're in compliance. But I think it's a vision of what we want us to be. And as I've learned about this program, and as I sat with Nigel early days, and he told me that they moved here from other part of the country just for this program, when I hear that people want to come here to have what we're doing, I think we have to do more of that. I think we have to lean in and really think about a world-class organization. That, I think, is a long-term goal, and that's the long-term gift we need to give to all the parents of special needs children.
So I really love utilizing the partnerships in our community. Through the Westlake Chamber of Commerce, we've already visited a couple of times with the Adult Transition Services Center, and we are trying to figure out ways that we can join our business community to have meaningful employment opportunities for students. We visited and we can talk to students where we could recognize their individual interests and abilities and try to match up with that. We have a lot of businesses in our community that would really love to be partners, really love to support our students and support their endeavors. And I would like to see us further work within our community.
So this next question will be our last prepared question, and then we are going to transition to questions from the audience, which I think we'll have a little bit of time after this question if anybody wants to just throw in another question into the mix back there. And I know that our volunteers down there can handle that last minute shuffling if they need to. Our last question will start, if the responders will be Aaron and then Kelly and then Catherine. Excuse me. Bullying is a pervasive national problem that impacts students across all demographics, including those in special education, and it can often result in anxiety, disorders, depression, or chronic absenteeism. How will you address this issue and create a framework for accountability while supporting and protecting all students' social and emotional needs? And as I said, we'll start with Aaron.
As I've talked to parents about their challenges with special education program, bullying has come up kind of pervasively. And again, I'll reflect back on my daughter and her experience about us at the time. This is, before people were using the terms intentional inclusivity. That's what really my wife and I were doing and not even knowing it. We were just being friends with that family, and Lydia loved Tia. And as a result, both my children, having that experience, have grown to understand what it means to be around children that have special needs. And as a result, they're not going to be on the other side of that bullying. They're not going to be on the other side of not understanding what the challenges are of those children and certainly of their parents. So I think that really has to be more of what we need to do. The idea that we are providing these services and these students are in with our general population more than 80% of their day, absolutely, that's the only way it can be done. Like I said, when I grew up, and like many of us grew up, they weren't in our classes, they weren't even in our schools. And I think what the experts have shown us over these years, the children have to be part and more included at every opportunity, so that bullying there's not even a space for bullying. There's not even a space for misunderstanding. And what my wife and I were doing with my children, we didn't even know we were doing. They're going to go forward in life with this level of understanding, this level of compassion and understanding for other members of our society that don't have necessarily the advantages that they do. And I think that's great. We have to try to find ways to continue to do more of that.
Kelly?
So bullying that's a very difficult one. That's very hard. And it's I have seen students come to me in the nurse's office with depression, anxiety related around to that sort of social and emotional distress. So I definitely think we have to continue to make sure that we have safety in place for our kids. They need to have a place to be able to report and get support services when they need them. We need to really focus and continue our inclusive classrooms, because the inclusive classrooms increase the empathy and the support of the students, and they know how to take care of each other, and it creates a community around each other. I love that we have our Best Buddies program at all of our campuses now. I think that's an important way for us to also build that support and that protection that we all feel with each other when we develop these deeper relationships, and we know that we have that support person there, we know how to access them, and yes, I would just like to see us continue to have the safety features in place so that our kids will feel safe.
Thank you all very much for, oh, I'm so sorry, Catherine. I even just made a note to myself.
They did
Catherine's
that to
next.
make the last one.
I deeply apologize to everyone and especially to Catherine. Catherine, please respond to that question.
Thank you. Actually, I thought you said bulimia, and so I was going to be really challenged to answer that one. Bullying is also a very hard topic to address. So, yes, obviously this is a notion of in our schools. We have right now, overall, we have a culture of achievement, right? And what I think we really need to focus on is a culture of kindness. I think the school is getting there. I remember the Green Glass campaign a few years ago about that, but I think not only do we need to address bullying properly when we see it happens, but we also need to train our children to recognize it, kind of the see something, say something mentality, like, hey, what you just said to Johnny, that wasn't nice, and have that is our culture of accountability, and that's our culture of kindness, that we learn to step up for each other. Yes, we need to have inclusive classrooms and diverse classrooms, but we also need to have classrooms where people are not afraid to do the right thing and step in when they see something wrong is going on. And so I would maybe look at some programs or some more awareness around that. I think that would go a long way to preventing bullying.
Okay. So we are now at the point where we're going to take some questions that have been submitted from the audience. They would like to read these.
Sorry,
No, that's okay.
we had about 15 questions. Some of them were duplicative of what we had already asked them, so I did. And some had 3 questions on one card, so I tried to make it as fair as possible.
Very good. Thank you so much for doing that. Sometimes it's hard to do that in the moment, so thanks to Christine for volunteering to do that. So, okay, so I'm going to put my glasses on because this is like written in pencil or something. Okay. So, and I think I'm going to try to keep the order that we've kind of been going through. Y'all are just going to have to bear with me as I figure that out a little bit in between these questions. The first question, so this time it'll be Aaron will start, and then Kelly, and then Catherine. So Aaron, to begin, if elected, how will you continue to stay informed about the needs of the special education community? And we're going to have 1 minute responses on these.
Well, that's an easy one. I'm going to be accessible. I will have, as I've already committed when I announced my campaign, I have the time to do whatever it takes. I don't have to work if I don't want to. I can commit myself to this endeavor as much as it needs. I'll have published calendar. I'll have standing office days. You can get my time any day of the week in groups for coffee, confidentially, and that will be my commitment for the entire time I serve. I will be accessible. I will not be reduced to some notes after a board meeting once a month. You will have access to me when you want it and when you need it and as much as you need.
Kelly.
I'd like to say the same. I'll be communicating with parents. I absolutely love talking to our parents. I've spent a lot of time doing it. I've been serving our parents in various roles in our community for a long time. And also, as a nurse, I'm a good listener. I do appreciate people trusting me with their stories and when they've told me their stories, because I know it's really hard. And I want to help parents not only get help for their students, but I always encourage them to get help for themselves as well, because sometimes we forget to take care of ourselves too.
Well, I think for me, it's not so much asking people to come to me as a trustee, but that I would continue to reach out for them. If there's one thing I've learned in this whole process, I've had the opportunity to meet families from different elementary schools than mine, from Westridge Elementary or Westridge Middle School versus Hill Country. And so I think that our trustees have a really unique role in the school district. They have the opportunity to be boots on the ground in the schools, talking with students, talking with parents at Friday assemblies, going to libraries and meeting teachers. And this is how we get information, going out and seeking information, not asking for people to come to you with it. And so that would be one.
Okay, the next question. I'm going to I think we can allow 2 minutes for the next question on responses. And we're going to start with Kelly, Catherine, and Karen. So Kelly, the question is, based on recent strategic summit board meetings, the board appears to be shifting away from highlighting SPED as a board priority. What are your thoughts on this shift?
So when I looked at the strategic planning, I saw that they did talk about trying to reach students where they're at, which I feel like does encompass what we're doing in the special ed program as well. I think that all students should be met where they're at. And I know it can be especially challenging sometimes. And so we have to look at what we're putting into place. But I do not feel that that is true. I feel that the board is definitely leaning in towards special education and towards all of our students, because we know that it is important to meet every student where they're at, and we know how to do that, and we're doing our best to do that. And I see it within the strategic plan when they talk about using different measures to reach students, using different means, different medias. And I feel confident that special education will always remain a priority for our school district.
Catherine?
All right. So with regard to strategic planning, is there less about SPED in there? Yes. Can we still achieve things without it being in this year's strategic plan? Yes. I have to say, when I was listening to the strategic planning and the updates, and they were talking about measures, I actually felt like the measures were not measures. They just sounded like a list of more tasks to do. So I would want to challenge that. The measurements are actually measurable. But I think we actually have something we did back in 2019. Aaron referenced it, the Stetson report. I don't think we need to recreate the wheel, and I don't think we need to do the Stetson report again. We need to go back to that because there's a lot of work to do. The last updates that I found from the Stetson review were completed in November 2020. So that was 4 years ago. And there's still a lot of work and progress to be made. So if it doesn't make it on the strategic plan, we can still go back to the Stetson report. We can still continue to post on those things because there's a lot of meat in there. It was a 70-page document that covered a plethora of topics. So that's what I would focus on.
Yep. As I've reviewed the strategic plan, I've had a hard time myself palading what I'm reading, because coming from the business world and CEO of my own companies for so many years, it's a lot of word salad. And I understand that's an academic art form, the way those strategy plans are written. I don't necessarily see that the strategic plan is leaning away from SPED, but I can understand that it doesn't look like it's intentionally leaning in. It seems almost neutral. But I can assure you, if I'm seated, I think it's a lean in plan. I think it is take it to the next level of excellence. It is thinking about making it a world-class organization. More of what brought Nigel and his family here, and many, many other parents that I have not met. I think we need to do more of that, because that really sparks my curiosity when I hear someone is willing to come here to use what we have, this great service we have. So I would not tolerate, relegating SPED to anything but a priority in the school. It has to be. I certainly, if I'm seated, I can foresee a lot of discussions around making the strategic goals actually measurable. I agree with you, Catherine, completely, because very little in there that's measurable, that you could go back and say, did we achieve that? And it would be hard for anyone to say yes or no. But that's an art form of strategic planning. It's something and an expertise and an insight that I would plan to bring to the board so it is more clear and so parents can understand it.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is submitted as a yes or no. So you put your pens down, you didn't take any notes. You put the pens down, get ready. If seated, would you support using reserve funds or rainy day funds if balance dips below the CFO's comfort level of 25 million to support our teachers? And we're starting with Catherine.
Yes, but there's an error.
It's a yes, thank you.
you.
And Erin,
Yes, that's what it's there for.
Yes.
thank you. I kind of like that. It's a word I like it. Okay, the next question, I will go back to, let me look at it real quick. Let's do 2 minutes on this one, please.
Oh, how about the yes or no?
We might come back to that, who knows? Okay, so the next question, the order will be Erin, Kelly, and Catherine. What are your thoughts on Eanes having a magnet program focused on special education? How would this program ensure meaningful relationships with same age peers who don't have disabilities? Erin first.
Our program for SPED needs to be a program that it's a service. It follows the student. It matches the needs of the student. It's not a place where all of the special education students would gather. No way. We know that it only works and it only works well if the students are in the general population completely. And that has to continue. Actually, we should try to do more of it. The concept magnet is batted about quite a bit, and it can mean positive things. And to some people it means negative, but I don't, the idea of SPED being a magnet program where kids are put in one place, no way. It has to be, it's a service and it goes to where the children are and it's customized for what the children need. So that's all it ever should be.
Okay, next is Kelly.
I do not believe in a magnet school for the SPED program. I believe that strongly goes against the IDEA. I love and support and see the value in our inclusive classrooms and the peer modeling, and I would continue what we have at Eanes, and I think it's the best program for all of our students.
Catherine.
Well, I would not be supportive of a magnet school for special ed. The whole concept of a least restrictive environment and inclusivity is helping prepare our children for life after schools when they don't have the safety net of mom and dad for them. And so what we're trying to do is not just provide academic skills, but life learning skills with their cohorts and the other children in an environment that helps prepare them for adulthood. And so there are other choices for families who want to go get specialized services, other schools for dyslexia or who help support children who have autism. And so if families make that decision, that's all good, but we're here to provide a least restrictive environment for our global community.
Thank you. Our next question is, and the order will be Kelly, Catherine, and then Erin. Chronic absenteeism is defined as absent 10% of school days. This includes absence for any reason, including excused absences. The current board is looking at the rate of special education absenteeism, which is 23%, which is up 7% from a year ago. Why do you think this is? And what strategies do you have to support these kids academically and socially?
How long?
I'm sorry,
Much time.
I didn't hear you.
How much time?
How much time?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, 2 minutes. I apologize. 2 minutes.
No, no, it's fine.
So one of the reasons I think why students might have more absenteeism since COVID is that we did do the at-home learning, and I do feel like sometimes there is that opportunity now where parents realize they can have the kids at home and they can learn there. So I think it's really comes down to identifying the barriers as to why the student isn't coming to school and how we can lift those barriers and put supports in place so that the student wants to come to school. How do we do that? And then what was the second part of the question?
Second part of the question is, what strategies do you have to support these kids academically and socially?
So I think the strategy would be to utilize our teachers at school and our instructional partner to, once again, identify barriers, find out how we can support these students, what they need, why they aren't coming to school, what we don't have at school for them, and then getting that put into place. And yeah.
All right, so yes, chronic absenteeism is an issue, and of course it impacts funding more for children who are in special needs. When Molly May presented at the board, she said that we have this huge cohort of students who at that point had missed 17 days of school, and that there was another big group of students who are about 15 days of absenteeism. And that really hit home with me. I know when you have a child with special needs, right, you have doctor's appointments, therapy appointments, physical therapy appointments, and those things, if you don't get your children back in school, by the cutoff time, then it's automatically considered an absent. Your unfunded absence is what Molly calls it. So some of those are unavoidable, just depending on your schedule and getting your child to where they need to get the proper support services. I heard Molly May also talk about a Saturday school, that maybe if we found a way to bring children in on Saturday and then we could boost the attendance back up. I would not be in favor of that, because children also need time away from school. And so the last thing we want to do is to bring them in on a Saturday, which is their prime time to be with other children in our mass and in our culture, in our society. So strategies I would look at. I think we could do a better job with some of our summer school programs. At least from my experience, it's been a few hours, a few days a week over the course of summer, and it just was really unwieldy to be able to get my children to those things. And I think we could do a better job of that. So, thank you.
Yeah, we talked about chronic absenteeism a little earlier. District-wide, it's reported 8.5%. Last year was 9.9%. And it is certainly true that the special education vertical is quite different. 16.5% in 22, and it jumped to 23.4% last year, as you said. But most of the bulk of that has come post-COVID. So I do agree that there's something about post-COVID world that's also affecting the absenteeism. I asked Dr. Arnett and Jeremy and Mr. Scott why they think it's happening, and they didn't know, but they were looking into it. I talked to parents, and parents say anecdotally they feel it has to do with some of the staff not being trained properly, that they felt that with the staff not being trained properly, that sometimes their children it would be a hard day for them. They'd have a more difficult day in the special education class. And for sure, I heard bullying as a reason why some children didn't come back. I heard that the 10 o'clock cutoff felt a little arbitrary, that doesn't fit the schedules of what a lot of students have. One parent was telling me about, hey, if he's sleeping, I'm not waking him up, because I know if I bring him in up early, he's going to have a tough day. And so I really felt that the parents just had different needs that necessarily didn't align with the rigor that the school requires to count the daily attendance. So I think all those things are contributing to this unusually high number, and it is drawing the overall student absenteeism up. But the good news is that it's focused in an area where if we concentrated our efforts in fixing that area, it would probably bring the absenteeism for the overall school down, which is what we want at the end of the day for our daily average attendance.
Okay, our next question, we're going to allow 1 minute. I want to start with Catherine, then Aaron and Kelly. If Individuals with Disabilities Act became fully funded, how specifically would that affect Eanes ISD SPED students? And Catherine.
Well, we have a goal of federal support. The IDEA support is 40%, and we could get maybe 25% of that. That would go a long way to covering the additional costs and the 50% gap that we have right now in this, the funding we have from the state and the funding that it costs to teach us the cost to actually help support our special needs population. So to know if it would work, I would literally have to do the math, but the more funding, the better, definitely.
Yeah, right now, our expenditures exceed the revenue every year by about $8 or $9 million. It's significant, and such an opportunity where the federal funding came in at the level we wanted, and as Catherine said, certainly the investment has to go into the areas where we know there are weaknesses. We know we're not getting the type of training and the depth of training we want in our staff. And if we're not getting it at the staff level, there's probably things we can do at the management level as well. Investments in technology and services and teachers' assistants to help those folks really do a great job. It's really more investments in people, because at the end of the day, people is what we need to deliver an amazing service, and that's how the dollars would be allocated for sure.
So yeah, the funding is supposed to be at 40%, and when I looked into it, I only saw that it was 16%, so I hope it is 25%. So, but no matter what, that's still a huge deficit, and that would definitely go a long way. There was also the Medicare funding was cut, instead, or Medicaid, I guess. And we would be in a very different place if we had that funding as well. So it would be nice if the state would.
Next question, we'll do 2 minutes on this one. We're gonna start with Erin and Kelly, then Catherine. What are your top 3 priorities? And what do you see as the 3 challenges for special education?
Well, the top 3 priorities, one has to be leadership. I think we need a champion on the board of trustees, that the parents know that I'm in their corner. I think, and that I'm very purposeful and communicative about that fact. Like I said, accessible, I do agree with Catherine completely. It's also outreach as well. So that's the first thing, leadership. The second thing has to be about really understanding what's driving attrition. How do we keep those teachers that are there for 1 to 5 years? How do we keep them in place? Because we want them to gain wisdom and experience, because only in possessing that type of skill, that type of ability, are you able to then recruit teachers beneath them and really build a first-class staff. And so that would be the second thing. And then the third thing, I think, would be really calling out the amazing efforts and the outcomes that special ed is doing. I think as a parent of neurotypical children, I don't hear the greatness necessarily of what's being accomplished in special education. I've learned a lot about it as we've had friends that have children in the program for years, and I've certainly learned a lot about it since I've been a candidate. But I think more could be done to really hold up the great achievements that it's accomplishing. And then I think that will follow, I think money will follow that as well, and outside support. When you look what Christine's family did, there's a lot of people out there, I think, that would like to direct their dollars toward such a wonderful program. If they knew more about it and what great things it was doing, I think that would be helpful.
My 3 priorities would be, number 1, parent communication and partnership. I think that's really important, and the parents need to know that they're supported and heard. Number 2, meet our students where they're at. We can identify that and we can provide for that. And number 3, continue to support the advocacy for funding, but while still using the resources around us until we have that.
3 challenges.
Oh, also 3 challenges. Oh my gosh. Okay. So 3 challenges. Definitely, number 1 challenge is funding. Our number 2 challenge is resources and making sure that we're looking all around and advocating and working together to get what we can. And then number 3 one of the challenges I've noticed is that the continuity throughout our campuses, we need to make sure that we're looking at that and addressing those issues.
Catherine?
All right, so I'm gonna do a one-for-one, one challenge and a priority to fix the challenge. So the first is, we have more work to do, right? We're trying really hard, but there's more we can do. So the priority to fix that is to go back to the Stetson report and finish the work. That report was very, very good and very, very thorough. It simply just kind of stopped towards the end of 2020. We were in a pandemic. So that's one. The second is parent engagement seems to have dropped, and it's shown in the special education. I remember the name Parent Partners. Since we changed the name, we need to get our special education parents back engaged with this process, right? You can't fix a problem without having a team behind you, and the team has to include parents. And then the last one is, I think special education teachers, it just requires a different level of effort, and it requires specialized training. And so we need to support our teachers. We need to listen to them. We need to receive their feedback, listen to it, and provide direct responses to what they're telling us, not just let it kind of trickle out. We really need to hear what they're saying and provide feedback.
Okay, the next question will be a 1-minute response time. We're going to do Kelly, Catherine, Aaron. What could be done to improve inclusion in the classrooms and promote friendships?
So I really think that having the best buddies on all the campuses is a great start for that. It's already started. I'm seeing great things happen. I'm seeing so much more awareness of it now. We had the Best Buddies walk, but I also see the students that are participating in it coming to board meetings and speaking up and engaging their peers. And it's kind of just a trickle down effect of everybody seeing how great it is, and now they want to join it. So I would say I would like to encourage us to keep supporting the Best Buddies program and on all of our campuses.
This is about inclusive classrooms.
What could be done to improve inclusion in the classrooms and promote friendships?
Yes, I agree. The Best Buddies is fantastic. That was actually a takeaway from the Stetson report. That was something very positive that the school did back in 2019. And they said we started in the high school, and then it became all of our campuses have it. And so therefore we are now the only school district in the country where every campus is part of Best Buddies. That's a start. There is more we can do. I think we need to go back to a culture of kindness, what we talked about a little bit before, where both with bullying, because bullying is all about singling somebody out. So the opposite of that is including somebody in activities. And so the more we start talking about see something, say something, and have our students be brave and kind, that goes a long way.
Absolutely, I agree with Catherine and Kelly. The Best Buddies program's pretty cool, but I have a particular slant toward the Unified Sports program. Both my children are athletic, and the idea of them working with special education kids, students, and sharing that experience with them, I think would just be absolutely wonderful, and just an absolute delight for them to have that experience. And maybe there's an opportunity for us to do more to get students engaged in doing something like that. And then obviously what we can do to help these special education students to go on and do great things after they're out of high school through ATS. Again, I know it's the third time I'm not plugging the Aggie Achieve necessarily, but
I will inject, there's also Bobcat Rise now.
yes, ma'am, there is. Yeah. I forgot about that one. But those are just great. That's just a great pathway, and promoting that. So not only the students, but the parents have a vision for the students is really, really important.
Thank you. Okay, this is going to be our final question. And because it has a couple of little things, we're gonna do 2 minutes, and then we're gonna just move quickly towards closing and then final comments. So we're gonna be pretty close to time, Roxanne. Okay. Okay, so this will be Catherine, Aaron, and then Kelly. What is your strategy for addressing the creation of an elementary strategy to address Spanish immersion, special education, and transportation on buses? And that's Catherine first.
Yes, well, I'm gonna say in general, I think elementary age parents, parents of children in elementary feel like they're a bit left behind. There's a lot of focus on the high school right now, and preparing for high school through middle school, but what are we doing at the elementary schools? And I think the notion is that there's a lot going on in our elementary schools, right? We have Spanish immersion going on. 670 plus students are currently in Spanish immersion, and even more have been in Spanish immersion. I think we have the notion of some of our elementary schools where the enrollment is down because we have held off on transfers. I think there's a notion that some parts of our district don't have a home campus, and so making sure that they still feel part of Eanes is going to be really important. As far as a holistic strategy, I mean, it has to be one that would probably be back in strategic priorities, that we take a look at specifically for elementary schools. How do we create a cohesive educational platform that matches the TEKS, that's very inclusive? If we continue with Spanish immersion, it has to be able to progress along those same TEKS levels. I think there's a notion with a strategy that we also have to look at our facilities, our long-range facility planning, and make sure that our elementary schools are now set up for the new way that we teach children with more collaborative classrooms and things like that. We just can't forget about elementary age children.
Hit the question one more time. There was something about buses in there.
What is your strategy for addressing the creation of an elementary strategy to address Spanish immersion, special education, and transportation on buses?
Well, the development of a strategy at the elementary level is, before you can do that, we're going to have to talk about our population and how many students we actually expect to come into kindergarten. Last Monday, I released a paper called Peak Eanes, which predicts, based on the demographer's information, that we're planning 450 kindergartners. But I don't think there's going to be 450 kindergartners come in, whether it's general population or special education. And until we know what the plan is on how many students we're going to have in district and how many we're going to bring in as transfers, we really can't have a holistic plan for the elementary, because every year we graduate about 725 to 750 students out of Westlake. If we're only bringing in 450 or so into our kindergartners, that's a gap of 300. If you have a gap of 300, you forward that 10 years, and again, I predict we're going to have somewhere between 2,100 and 2,500 transfer students. So if we're redoing our campuses and the long-term planning that Catherine references, we have to know how many students we have. And until we know how many students we have and how many the board actually wants, we can't get into comprehensive study and planning around making programs successful, because we have to know what facilities we're going to have in order to be able to do that. So the first thing we need at this point is direction from the Board of Trustees. How many students are we going to take? When are we going to take them in? And what is that elementary system going to look like? Because I don't think it addresses the fact that we have competition from homeschooling, we have competition from private schools, and we have competition from all the schools around us that are getting stronger and bigger and better. And that's going to affect our population. That needs to be addressed first. And then we can really talk about an answer to what your question is.
So an elementary strategy that I've been talking to some parents about is making SI, the Spanish immersion program, SI, more inclusive as well. We can support our students who have an IEP to stay in Spanish immersion. And there's also research that dyslexia and learning a second language is very, it does help, and it gives kids a lot of confidence because Spanish follows all the rules better than English does. And there's just a lot of research out there, and I would love us to really dig into that and look at that, because I feel like if we can make Spanish immersion inclusive as well, then we'll have the parents feel a lot more support for it. And then our students will be offered the equal opportunities that they're supposed to be getting offered.
Thank you. Thank you all very much for all of your responses. We're now going to move to closing statements. So each candidate will have 2 minutes for your closing statement, and we're going to go in reverse alpha order. So it'll be Catherine Walker, Aaron Silva, and then Kelly Marwell. And we're going to start with Catherine.
Well, it was a big decision for me to step up as, to run for trustee. I am a single parent of 3 children. They keep me very busy and actually challenged me a lot to open my eyes and to listen. The reason I stepped into this is because of my daughter and because we had a bit of a, specifically with special education, when they recommended we go out of district for support and services. And I'd hired a consultant because I wanted to make sure that I supported her, not because of my own biases as a parent, but as to make sure that if the school was recommending something, that I have a very clear view. And so this has been a really amazing process because I've been able to talk with families from all over the district and at different age levels, and families who are in high school. My children aren't in high school yet. I still have 2 in elementary. One of the things I do want to address just regarding finances as a CFO, we're going to have some hard conversations, right? We're going to have hard conversations when the results come back from that long-range facility planning committee meeting, and then it goes to a bond advisory committee meeting, and then it will go to our board. That's going to happen at the same time where we're also going to be seeking additional allotments from the state legislation, and who knows? You know, it's hard to say what the future holds. So I think as we have these big and bold conversations, we need to, of course, always hope for the best, but we're going to need to start planning for the worst and have not surprises, but conversations where the community can give us feedback and where they'll see where we're going long before we ever have to make any actions around that. So I'm ready for that. I'm doing this eyes wide open.
Aaron?
As I've said previously in public, if I'm elected, I will be a different kind of leader. I will not be more of the same. I'm going to be a different type of trustee. I understand that special education is one of those areas that you have to really think with your heart and your head to be effective. And I'll be able to do that because naturally I have great curiosity about things that necessarily I believe can be helped. My whole career, I've been someone that loves problems, loves complex situations, loves to make things better. And I get great satisfaction out of having to do with something better, leaving something better than it was than when I found it. I absolutely love the district. Like all of you, I have children in the district as well. And I want my children to grow and be amazing citizens of America. And I want them to go forward, and I want them to be part of the Westlake legacy. When I think about special education, I do see a really wonderful opportunity to take it to another level of excellence. I don't think it should be treated any differently or looked any differently than I think about the rest of the district. I think there's an opportunity here to do things differently and at a different level. And I don't believe comparing us to other districts that may be mediocre is a way for us to be satisfied with the way things are. We always have to be looking to do things better. And as a leader and as a trustee, a different type of leader, you can know that I will be an advocate. I will be in your corner. I will try to seek to understand before seeking to be understood. And you will understand that I'm there for you, and I'm committed to do everything I possibly can for the good of this district.
So I've been in the halls of our schools for the past 4 years. I've seen the kindness on our campuses. I see our parents very engaged, and I want to support and grow that. I think our Best Buddies program is starting real upstanders in our community, and it's a good thing. We're not perfect, but I know we're doing the work. Matt Zemo restructuring and adding the instructional partner for all of our campuses, continuity, and that teacher support led to his report of a 90% retention rate on teachers in the special education department. I know we can continue to grow this. Our inclusive classrooms are a huge benefit to all of our students, and we can meet each student where they are at. I look forward to continuing to serve our community.
We want to thank, I really deeply want to thank each of you all for, it's obvious you've given a lot of thought and time to this process of running for office. And as I said, when we started, to me, it's public service and it's incredibly important. So I want to thank you all very much for your time and your participation on a Saturday afternoon, which is always troublesome for everybody, I'm sure. But also want to thank those of you that took the time to come today and those that are online, because I know we've got some folks watching online as well. And once again, thanks to Laura, librarian Roxana, for being so kind to allow us the use of the space and also for facilitating the live stream. So early vote is happening now until next Tuesday, the 30th of April, and then election day is on May 4th. And before we leave, I want to bring special attention and to the endowment that was mentioned earlier, but I want to draw your attention to this new initiative in Eanes ISD through EEF. So the Special Education Endowment Fund, or the SEED Fund, has been launched. So hope you'll take a moment to grab one of these flyers. It describes not only what the fund is, but in the buckets, which I thought was very cute graphics, talks about what the funds can be used for. And there is a QR code on here, which I'm told is a little sketchy, but there's a website there that you can go to. Obviously, for this fund to be really helpful and useful, it'll be wonderful that we could spread the word. And if everyone will consider making a donation to the SEED Fund, that will certainly go a long ways towards enhancing educational opportunities and experiences for all our students. So with that, we want to thank you very much for today. We remind everybody that we've got to be out of this room in just a little bit, but please grab a snack and utilize the outdoor space if you'd like to continue the conversations. Thank you all very much to the parents that helped organize.